Hey, what is going on, guys? This is Jake at That Fit Friend, and today I'll be sharing my first impressions on the Nike Zoom Metcon Turbo 2. So this is a follow-up model to the Nike React Metcon Turbo, and this is a model that had a lot of mixed reviews. Some lifters and athletes really loved it, while others thought it was a complete miss. I personally liked the original Nike React Metcon Turbo, so I was super stoked to put the Nike Zoom Metcon Turbo 2 to the test. And with this model, I already have some very strong thoughts on this shoe. Some good and some not so good. And so two quick housekeeping things before we dive into my first impressions is number one, I will have a full built out review for this shoe next week. So if you are interested in this model, definitely check out that video. I'll share where it excels, where it falls short, some performance thoughts, and some more in-depth sizing and construction breakdown thoughts. So definitely check that out next week. And then number two, I also plan to do a giveaway with this shoe. Nike actually sent this pair for review, but I plan to buy a pair for a giveaway. So definitely check out that review video if you're interested in winning a pair of the Nike Zoom Metcon Turbo 2s. So 5 first impressions that I have with this model is number one, the fit is somewhat similar to the Nike React Metcon Turbo. So this shoe has a lower volume similar to the Zoom Metcon Turbo 2, and its toe box feels more athletic in nature. I almost compare this model similar to like how a cleat feels. And if I had to compare it to another Nike Metcon model, it actually feels most similar to my favorite model to date, which is the Nike Metcon 4, which yes, this is my beloved pair that I only wear for certain occasions, and that's why they're in great health. So this does feel very similar to the Nike Metcon 4, so I think if you liked how that shoe fit, then you will like how the Nike Zoom Metcon Turbo 2 fit. My second first impression, which kind of stems off of that fit note, is that I'm actually not the biggest fan of the boot construction. So while I like how the upper and the sole fits as a whole, the boot back here is kind of a miss. In the React Metcon Turbo, we had a softer boot construction, and then in this model, the sidewalls here on the medial and lateral side are pretty rigid. And so what I've noticed is that on the lateral side of both of these shoes, so my left and right model, I'm actually getting a nice little cut into my malleolus. And so I think if you're somebody who often has that issue with shoes, that could be a problem for you because this model does ride up a little bit more, and this is gonna take a little bit more time to break in. So if you do invest in this shoe and you know that's a problem, definitely wear longer socks, especially for those first couple of weeks with breaking the shoe in. My third first impression is that the Zoom Air Packet that you get in the React insole is interesting. I'm actually not sure how I feel about it yet. I want a couple more sessions before I really make up my mind, because when lifting, you don't really notice this Zoom Air Packet. But if you're doing workouts that are very demanding when it comes to like lateral movement or being on your forefoot, you do start to notice this a little bit. So for example, I played pickleball the other day for about an hour in this shoe, and I was noticing in the forefoot that I could feel this Zoom Air Packet. And it wasn't necessarily like deterring from my performance or really how the shoe interacted with the ground and how it performed, but it was a little bit uncomfortable at times. And so I'm not exactly sold that this is necessarily a great thing, but I could see the benefit there, especially for like how it adds to the explosive nature of the shoe, which I did notice in the gym. But for longer sessions, I did start to feel this under the forefoot, which could be a hit or miss depending on how you like your shoes to fit, feel, and perform. My fourth first impression with the shoe, and this is something that I'm pretty dang bummed about, is that in my left model here, I'm already having stress rips on the mesh upper. And that's a bummer because in the React Metcon Turbo, we had this layer here over the forefoot that kind of protected the shoe from this issue, and the mesh was only here on the lateral side. In this model, we have a full mesh upper here in the forefoot. And so to only train in this model now 3 times and already have stress rips, like that is a bummer, especially because the React Metcon Turbo never really ran into that issue, especially up here in the top of the toe box. And so what I plan to do in this model before I publish my review is I'm gonna actually go through the same workout that I did earlier today where I noticed this shoe rip, and I wanna see if I could find exactly when and why it happened. That way, hopefully we can zero in as to what exactly caused this shoe to have some stress rips, and that way we can hopefully avoid that in other lifters and athletes. So basically just have more foresight into where this shoe is gonna fall short. We have a toe guard in this model, but it sits a little bit lower, and these rips are right at the top of that toe guard. So that is definitely something to think about if you're gonna invest in this shoe and you plan to do a lot of plyos in this model or do a lot of athletic style training. My fifth first impression with this shoe is that Besides the stress rips and this annoying break-in process, like the performance has been pretty strong. When pulling 500 in this model, the stability was fine. When doing power cleans, I didn't really notice that Zoom air packet despite noticing it when playing pickleball. So I think in the gym and for cross training, the shoe should perform pretty well. I'm not exactly sold on this midfoot construction for rope climbing because in the React Metcon Turbo, that was an issue. So I do want to test that before publishing this review, but I do like that split outsole construction and how it does give the shoe a little bit more of an athletic feel. Plus, I think in the gym, you're not going to notice that Zoom air packet to the same degree as if you're like training outside or if you're doing more agility work where you're on the feet for longer durations. So that would definitely be something to consider, but as a whole, the shoe has performed pretty well thus far, despite those little quirks that I mentioned earlier, which are things that were tweaks from the first model that I'm not necessarily sold should have been tweaked. But that all being said, guys, those are my first impressions. I think there's a lot to like about this model, but there are also some hesitations that I have with the shoe, and that's why I want to get more sessions in before putting up a full review, because I need to figure out if maybe these stress rips are just kind of like a one-off thing, or if this is gonna be an issue for a lot of folks. But as always, guys, if you have any questions on this model, and if you're thinking about investing before I publish my review, hit me in the comments below with any questions you might have, or reach out to me personally, whichever you prefer. And as always, guys, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next one.